Here's from California. Okay, just in the past month, have any of your families been affected by the wildfires? Not as many as I thought. But either way, all California residents will soon be affected if we don't act soon. This is a serious problem, and California's fire policies need to improve one way or another. And climate change is also a large factor that affects our forests, and we need to take action. So, as Cassandra mentioned in her speech, global warming and climate change is a major cause of these huge fires that we call mega fires. Climate change covers many related factors that lead to fire. One of the biggest ones is heat, and one statistic, temperatures have risen about 2 degrees Fahrenheit, and the last 5 years have been California's hottest ever reported. This was found by Aria Bendix and Peter Katecki in their article, Stunning Facts Reveal How Much More Devastating Wildfire Season Has Become in California and Throughout the U.S., written 3 weeks ago. Basically, the heat leads to drought, and that's basically the most extreme factor of climate change that we've experienced in California. Drought leads to dry brush, which obviously isn't good for fires, and also less snowpack, which leaves mountains dry and vulnerable. And then mountainous terrain is also very prone to fire, just because the heat just crawls up the mountain easily. Northern California received only an inch of rain all of last season, which is a fifth of the average. So another aspect of climate change is the change in the jet stream, which by definition is a narrow, variable band of very strong, predominantly westerly air currents encircling the globe several miles above the Earth. So basically, the heating climate has caused much of the Arctic to melt, altering the regular patterns of the jet stream. So what that does is it causes the climate to stay kind of stagnant and remain hot in our area instead of follow the regular patterns of the climate. Josh Gavatis noticed this in his article, Heat Waves, Wildfires, and Floods Being Caused by Stalling Weather System Phenomenon Triggered by Climate Change, written in 2018. The fire season is nearly 4 months longer than in the 70s. In California, that means this is almost year-round. This was observed by Allison Kenward in her article, Western Wildfires, A Fiery Future, written in June 2016. Also, 15 of the 20 largest fires in California have occurred just after the year 2000. Climate change doesn't necessarily cause the fires. Yeah, no, that's not it. Climate change doesn't necessarily cause the fires, but makes them far more extreme. So basically, climate change isn't going to spark the big blaze, but it's going to make it much worse than it could be. The burning of fossil fuels and carbon emission largely contributes to the issue of climate change. Heavy restrictions and bad forest management allow for dangerous conditions in California. There are just so many permits and restrictions needed to dispose of any trees, brush, or thick forests here. So this makes it basically impossible to prevent these catastrophic fires. This was stated by the editorial board of Wall Street Journal in November of 2018 in the article, California's Paradise Lost. So examples of some of these permits, air quality permits are required. So with the smoke, burn permits from local fire agencies are also required, and a lot of other permits depending on the location, size, and type of burn. So as stated by Chuck DeVore in his 2018 article, California's devastating fires are man-caused, but not in the way they tell us. Thick forests contain dead trees and underbrush that build up over time. So we need a couple ways to remove this for the health of our forests. Do you guys know what controlled burns are? Yeah? Okay, cool. Because I've talked to some people directly affected to the fires, don't even know what they are, and I just think that shows how much of a problem it is, because we need those to get rid of the fire or all the fuel near the big cities and basically where people live. There's so much forest, and we don't even control it. And also, not clearing but thinning the forest is important, because a lot of environmentalists are worried about the big trees being cut down and species being lost. But we don't have to get rid of all the forest, just thin it out a little bit. So the Forest Service has become more costly and less effective. Forest Service fire expenditures have increased from less than $1 billion in the late 90s to over $3.5 billion in 2016. Fires are getting worse as more money is being spent. The National Environmental Policy Act and the Endangered Species Act are two notable policies that resulted in time-consuming and cost-prohibiting restrictions. These are requirements that have made the management of California's forests virtually impossible. This was reported on by Jared Stetman in his 2018 article, Environmentalist Policies Are Exacerbating Wildfires. It's time to rethink forest management. Also, the fire suppression policy has increased from 16 to over 50% of the Forest Service's annual budget, and the fires are more dangerous and harder to extinguish than ever before. This data is provided by Stephanie Heffley in her 2016 article, Burned Up. So in order to put an end to these massive fires, we have to take real action. We need to listen to scientists, professional firemen, and local communities to see what the people directly affected have to say. We also need to put the health of our forests first. In order to do that, we need to clear underbrush and find a way to make this profitable. So a big problem right now is timber companies don't have enough incentive to clear the biomass, which is the technical term for all the fuel that builds up on the floor of the forests over time. They don't have enough incentive to clear that because there's so much regulation here, and there's just been a lot of progressive movement to protect the trees and protect all of the forest, which didn't work too well for us. But the timber companies they might as well seek other business at this point, and that's what they're doing. So the federal government is moving toward expediting the sale of timber on federal lands that will lead to more clearing of trees and biomass. So hopefully that will start the movement of better managing the forests, but it can't be done without our participation as well. We need to take real action to fight the fires within our own ability. Climate change is a real issue, and we need to do what we can within our ability to lessen these effects. So really what we can do, Cassandra also mentioned a lot of that for climate change, but I was just saying, generally we could just be aware of everything we do and ask ourselves if it might contribute to changing our climate or ultimately leading to a wildfire. So no matter our view, I just believe we need to work together to put an end to these catastrophic fires.